So picture this. You're at the most chaotic, ear-splitting, sweat-drenched punk rock concert you have ever been to.
Oh, yeah. Amplifiers screaming, the whole
That's it.
deal.
The lead singer is up there, right?
Yeah.
Smashing a guitar. The crowd is in this absolute frenzy, and the anti-establishment energy in the room is just, I mean, it's thick enough to choke on.
Right, a total revolution.
But then imagine the lead singer just like suddenly stops the show.
Just abruptly cuts the music.
Yeah. He sits down on the edge of the stage, pulls out a smartphone, and just furiously starts checking to see if anyone retweeted the guitar smash.
Oh, wow. That totally kills the vibe.
Completely. The whole illusion of the revolution just vanishes, right?
Yeah.
And it's replaced by this desperate, quiet need for digital validation.
Yeah, that whiplash between, revolutionary theater and algorithmic addiction, that is the exact mechanical core of the text we were unpacking today.
It really is. So welcome to a brand new deep dive. And the mission today is to unpack this highly stylized, just fiercely critical piece of modern political commentary.
It's a fascinating text. We were looking at a blog post, and it's dated April 16, 2026.
Right.
It's written by an author named Paramendra Kumar Bhagat. And he actually explicitly notes in the text that he was Barack Obama's first full-time volunteer in New York City.
Yeah, he makes sure you know his pedigree right off the bat. So the post is titled Barack Face, Julius Malema, South Africa's greatest populist punk, now available in 280 character doses.
It is an unsparing, a highly stylized takedown of Julius Malema, who is the commander-in-chief of South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters Party.
The EF, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the source material includes this really dense essay and perhaps most uniquely an actual AI-generated rap song designed specifically to mock him.
Yeah, the AI rap is wild. But before we dig into the actual mechanics of this critique, we really need to pause and look you, the listener, directly in the eye for a second.
Very important disclaimer here.
Yeah. This source material contains highly charged, deeply opinionated political content. It touches on South African politics, race relations, economic policy-heavy stuff.
Right.
And we want to be incredibly clear. We are not taking any sides here.
Not at all.
We are not endorsing the viewpoints, the insults, or the political stances in this text. Our job is strictly to act as impartial guides.
We're just looking at the architecture of the argument.
Exactly. We're analyzing the fascinating use of metaphors and, the unique way the author has combined political critique with AI technology purely to convey the ideas contained in the original source material to you.
Yeah, we're just the messengers here. So looking at the text, the author builds his entire worldview upon this single defining metaphor.
The disruptive rock star.
Right. The politician not as a legislator, but as a punk rocker. Foggett explicitly compares Julius Malema to Johnny Rotten.
The front man of the Sex Pistols.
Exactly. He asks the reader to envision, like, a version of Johnny Rotten who has discovered the political concept of land expropriation.
And crucially, happens to have a really reliable Wi-Fi connection.
Yes. The structural foundation of this comparison is its musical simplicity combined with just maximum volume.
Right, because the essay asserts that Malema's entire political output basically consists of just 3 chords of rage.
Just 3 chords.
Yeah. And those 3 chords, according to the text, are white monopoly capital, expropriate without compensation, the boer must pay.
Now, to understand why the author chooses those specific phrases, we kind of have to look at the landscape they reference.
Right. We need the context. So, white monopoly capital is a term used to describe the disproportionate control of the South African economy by the white minority.
Which is obviously a direct hangover from the systemic engineering of apartheid.
Exactly. And then expropriation without compensation. That is the EFF's foundational policy proposal.
The big one.
Yeah, to amend the Constitution to allow the state to seize land without paying the current owners, to redistribute it to the black majority.
And the rhetoric regarding the boer, which refers to white Afrikaner farmers, well, that taps into these deep historical veins of racial and economic tension over land ownership.
It's incredibly heavy, complex stuff. But the author isn't merely quoting the EFF's platform here.
No, he is critiquing the delivery mechanism of that platform.
Right, because if you look at the history of music, the 3-chord punk structure, it was a deliberate, aggressive rejection of all that bloated, progressive rock from the 70s.
Right, it was designed to be raw, visceral, accessible to literally anyone who could hold a guitar and scream.
Yeah. So by labeling Malema's deeply complex macroeconomic proposals as just 3 chords, Vagat is making a real accusation here.
He's arguing that the EFF has intentionally stripped down the immense complexity of post-apartheid reconciliation into this crude, aggressively repetitive chant.
Just bypassing all intellectual nuance for maximum emotional impact.
Exactly. And the critique of the aesthetic, it goes way beyond just the sound.
The visual presentation.
Right. The EFS is famous for its stark visual strategy. Members of parliament show up to legislative sessions wearing bright red worker overalls.
And rubber boots.
Yes, and the signature red berets. It's highly coordinated to align them with the working class.
And historical Marxist-Leninist revolutionaries like, Thomas Sankara.
Right. But Fagat looks at that uniform and just violently deflates it. He zeroes in on the red beret and dismisses it as, quote, the world's angriest yarmulke.
The world's angriest yarmulke. I mean, wow.
It's a calculated attempt to strip the garment of its military menace.
Because a yarmulke is a small, traditional, religious head covering.
Exactly. By applying that specific imagery, the author is attacking Malema's authenticity. He's suggesting they aren't actual foot soldiers in an economic war.
They're just wearing a highly curated costume.
Right. It reduces a potent symbol of working-class solidarity into just a cynical piece of theatrical wardrobe.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because I want to push back on the author's premise here.
Let's hear it.
If you are going to label a politician a punk rocker, isn't there almost an inherent compliment baked into that?
How do you mean?
Well, punk rock actually succeeded, right? It terrified the establishment, it overthrew the musical status quo, and it gave a legitimate voice to disenfranchised working-class youth who were being completely ignored. So by comparing Malema to a movement that achieved genuine cultural upheaval, is the author accidentally giving him too much credit?
That's a really fair point. Punk was undeniably effective at cultural demolition.
Yeah.
But the author, I think, focuses relentlessly on the structural limitations of that demolition.
So
Think of it like this. A demolition crew is incredibly effective at tearing down a condemned building, but you cannot ask them to pour the foundation for a new skyscraper using a wrecking ball.
right, it's the wrong tool for building.
Exactly. The author argues that Malema is entirely a creature of that initial shockwave. The essay literally states that once the concert ends and the house lights come up, there is no second album.
Wow, the missing second album. And that represents the grim, unglamorous machinery of actual governance, right?
Yes. Drafting a 2,000-page infrastructure bill, negotiating with trade unions, managing international bond yields.
That requires the quiet focus of an architect, not the volume of a lead singer.
Exactly. The author claims that once the establishment has been adequately shocked, Malema has absolutely no follow-up material prepared for the actual work of building the state.
Which brings us to the next massive point. Because if the performance is the entirety of the product, the natural question is, where is this performance actually being hosted?
Right, what's the venue?
And the author argues his true stage isn't Parliament at all. It's the social media algorithm.
The attention economy. The essay contains this really piercing line, characterizing Malema as a man who lives for the algorithm, not the people.
I mean, think about your own relationship with your social media feed, right? The platforms are meticulously engineered by neurobehavioral scientists to just keep you scrolling.
They reward high-emotion, high-conflict content.
Yeah, and the nuanced, moderate stuff just sinks straight to the bottom.
And Vagat is arguing that Malema has recognized this underlying code.
Okay.
He's subordinated his entire political philosophy to it.
The text actually claims his ideology is entirely fluid. It just shifts to whatever gets the most retweets before breakfast.
It's a brutal framework. And he uses this biological analogy to explain the loop. He describes Malema's outrage as the political equivalent of a goldfish with a Twitter addiction.
A goldfish.
Because of the memory span?
Exactly. The goldfish is famous for having an incredibly short memory, completely driven by whatever immediate stimuli is right in front of it.
Right.
Vagat is arguing that Malema isn't actually driven by a consistent, decades-long marination in historical injustice, because that would demand long-term strategic focus.
Right, which the goldfish doesn't have.
Instead, he paints a picture of a politician basically held hostage by his own neurochemistry.
Yeah, the essay is so specific here. It describes Malema experiencing a literal dopamine hit from delivering a fiery rant about settlers.
He feels the chemical rush of the engagement, the likes, the quote tweets.
But because his attention span has been rewired by the platform, he immediately loses his focus on the ideological struggle.
Why?
Because, and this is a direct quote from the text, some influencer just posted a video of a cat wearing a tiny EFF beret. A cat in a beret. It's so
It
absurd.
totally derails the revolution, and utilizing the language of addiction, dopamine hit, performance-enhancing drug dealer, it really recontextualizes the anger we see in modern populism.
It frames the anger as chemical, not righteous.
Yeah. He writes, outrage is the ultimate performance-enhancing drug, and social media is his dealer. That frames the politician as a literal junkie.
A junkie whose physical dependency on engagement metrics overrides any commitment to statecraft.
To illustrate this, Fagat sketches this scene of stark contrast. He describes Malema thundering at the podium in Parliament, demanding the nationalization of the country's mines.
Which is massive. Nationalizing mines in South Africa means the state seizing control of multi-billion-dollar platinum, gold, and coal operations.
It would trigger international trade disputes, massive capital flight. It requires flawless logistical engineering.
It's terrifyingly complex.
Yet the author notes that 30 seconds after demanding this on the floor, Malema sits back down and starts scrolling his phone to memes mocking President Cyril Ramaphosa's expensive suits.
The juxtaposition is just crazy. The macroeconomic overhaul of the mining sector requires relentless generational focus.
And a meme about a tailored suit is just instant gratification.
Exactly. And the author observes that the outcome of this split attention is that the mines remain in private hands, the suits remain expensive, and the only resource successfully captured is the public's focus.
Have you ever been in a meeting where someone, dramatically bangs their fist on the table, loudly demands a complete overhaul of the whole company's workflow, and then immediately leans back and starts texting under the table?
Oh, definitely. They don't want to fix a workflow.
Exactly. They just wanted the room to look at them. Bagat is accusing the EFF of executing that exact maneuver on a national scale.
Because the algorithm demands that constant stream of shallow friction, the heavy machinery of actual policy is abandoned.
Which brings us to one of the most vivid paragraphs in the whole piece, because he says what fills the void is a policy mime.
The policy mind. The choreography here is laid out with surgical precision.
You can literally see a street performer in white makeup. Fagat says Malema pulls an invisible rope of economic justice.
Right. He contorts his body, miming being crushed by the invisible boot of white monopoly capital.
But when you look at the actual paperwork, the blueprint underlying the performance, the author claims it basically amounts to step 1, take the stuff. Step 2, step 3, vibes.
Step 3, vibes. It's a devastating critique of prioritizing aesthetic over mechanics.
And to really hammer home this mechanical incompetence, Fagat brings in this toddler analogy.
Oh, this part is brutal.
He compares the leader of a major political party to a toddler facing the mystery of why their toy is suddenly in the toilet.
That's right, because a toddler lacks the cognitive development to understand a plumbing system.
They drop the toy is ruined, and they just scream at the water.
The author isn't just disagreeing with the EFF's economic models. He is asserting that Malema fundamentally lacks the capacity to comprehend the plumbing of a modern nation-state's economy.
You can't legislate a nation into prosperity if you don't understand cause and effect.
So if the policy proposals are empty, how does the author explain the actual EFF manifesto?
Here's where it gets really interesting. He categorizes the document not as a legislative roadmap, but as a Spotify playlist.
A playlist.
Yeah, and he gives it a title, Bangers That Make White People Uncomfortable.
Think about how you consume a Spotify playlist, right? It isn't a cohesive narrative arc like a symphony.
No, it's a fractured, curated collection of moods designed to just be played on shuffle in the background.
By applying that specific technological framework to a political manifesto, the author is suggesting the platform is just a compilation of greatest hits.
It exists solely to provoke anxiety in one demographic and thrill another without any actual intention of being implemented.
And the fallout of this digital concert is what Bagat identifies as the real tragedy.
South Africa keeps buying tickets to the show.
Every election cycle, the populace has sold tickets to a revolution.
Promise structural upheaval, return of land.
But the only deliverable that actually materializes is a fresh batch of viral video clips for the highlight reel.
Buying tickets to a show where the band never actually plays a song.
Exactly. Now, everything we've analyzed so far is contained within the traditional essay format.
Right.
But the author takes this radical step to really prove his point. He doesn't just use tech metaphors to mock Malema. He weaponizes the actual technology of 2026.
Yes, the AI rap. He generates and embeds right in the post a full AI rap song titled Julius Malema, Populist Punk, Empty Tank.
The inclusion of artificial intelligence here to synthesize his arguments into a musical format that is the most critical layer of the source material.
We really have to examine the lyrics not just as poetry, but as the output of an algorithmic brain digesting the author's disdain.
Let's look at the lyrics.
Okay, let's read the first verse directly. The AI generates, he struts on the stage like Johnny Rotten with expropriation, Wi-Fi connected, land grab motivation, white monopoly capital, Boer gotta pay. Then the beat drops, lights up where the second verse at, eh? Hand gestures wild, Trina summon an Uber toddler in the toilet, toy gone, no clue solutions. Nah, bruh, he ain't built for that view.
It's incredible how the machine effortlessly absorbs the complex metaphors provided by the human prompt. The punk rocker, the toddler, the missing second album.
And just reformats them into this aggressive, rhythmic cadence of a diss track.
And the use of terms like bruh and the visual of wild hand gestures trying to summon an Uber.
Right. The AI is successfully mimicking a very specific modern cultural vernacular to land the insult.
Let's look at the second verse. It leans entirely into the critique of the attention economy.
I have it here. It reads, wakes up every morning, not fixing inequality. What's the tweet that'll make blue checks lose their sanity? Retweets before breakfast, that's the whole ideology EFF manifesto. Spotify playlist, straight fire bangers that make white people uncomfortable choir. Policy mime in the corner, pulling ropes of air marks, Guevara, TikTok star, a chaotic affair.
The medium chosen here is inherently the message. The author perceives Malema as an entity entirely captured by the algorithm.
A hollow vessel reacting to digital stimuli.
Exactly. So to mock an algorithmic puppet, Bagat utilizes an actual, literal algorithm. It is an incredibly layered insult.
It really is the ultimate expression of Silicon Valley arrogance.
Oh, for sure.
He's basically communicating, your political identity is so fundamentally shallow that I don't even need a human soul to write a song mocking it.
A cold, emotionless machine can perfectly replicate, distill, and humiliate your entire essence in a matter of seconds.
But, the execution of the insult relies heavily on the distribution network.
The source material documents exactly how Bagat deployed this AI creation.
Right. On April 16th, 2026, he posted the track on X, formerly Twitter.
And the metadata of that post is where the author's entire moral high ground just completely collapses.
Oh, it falls apart. Because Bagat doesn't just post the link. He specifically tags Elon Musk, tagging that specific constellation of billionaires, tech influencers, and the literal targets of the essay. I mean, that is a highly calculated, desperate maneuver to hack the visibility algorithms.
It's a scattergun approach designed to force his content into the feeds of the most powerful nodes on the network.
This is where I have to just call out the staggering hypocrisy of the author.
Yeah, it's pretty glaring.
The entire essay is a condemnation of a politician who performs for the algorithm, right? Someone who prioritizes retweets over substance and desperately seeks the dopamine hit of viral engagement.
Right.
Yet the moment the author finishes writing this critique, he immediately jumps onto the exact same platform, tags the wealthiest owner of the algorithm, and begs for the exact same viral engagement.
He is chasing the exact same dopamine hit he just spent 2,000 words diagnosing as a political sickness.
It's unbelievable.
It really forces an evaluation of the 2026 information ecosystem.
Yeah.
Can an observer successfully critique the attention economy without simultaneously participating in it?
The author seems to have concluded that the only viable weapon against a viral populist contagion is just a viral, technologically enhanced media virus of his own making.
Fire with fire. Now, to truly comprehend why Bagat views the political landscape through this hyper-specific lens of Wi-Fi, algorithms, and AI, we must investigate the meta-context provided in the source.
Yes, the blog's sidebar. It functions as this exhaustive bibliography of the author's broader intellectual footprint.
And scanning the titles of his other published works reveals a fiercely cemented ideology.
The author isn't just a casual observer of technology.
Well, he is deeply embedded in the theology of hyper-capitalism and futurism.
The library of titles is staggering in its scope. We see unicorn to Solara, from billion-dollar startups to trillion-dollar sons.
Now, a unicorn is Silicon Valley jargon for a privately held startup company valued at over $1 billion.
Right. So the author is projecting the arc of capitalism from billion-dollar software companies to the literal commodification of solar energy on a galactic scale.
It's a massive thinking. We also see precigenetics, the technology that lets us watch life think. How photons, cells, and AI may help us cure cancer and rewrite medicine.
And we find texts grounding us deeply in the technological anxieties of 2026, like agentic AI, set to explode in 2026.
Agentic AI. That differs from simple chatbots. It refers to systems designed to autonomously pursue complex goals, execute tasks across different software, and make decisions with very minimal human oversight.
The author is anticipating a world where machines act with real agency.
But the most revealing titles point to a unique philosophical framework he has seemingly authored himself.
Right, we see Kalkiism, the economic and spiritual blueprint for an age of abundance.
And the 20% growth revolution. Nepal's path to prosperity through Kalkiism.
Now, Kalki is traditionally the final incarnation of the Hindu deity Vishnu, prophesied to appear at the end of the current epoch to destroy filth and usher in a new golden age.
So the author appears to be fusing eschatological religious imagery with techno-capitalist accelerationism.
To propose a global blueprint for economic abundance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, placing the author's ideological profile against the target of his essay creates this massive grinding collision of worldviews.
Completely, because on one side of the ledger you have Julius Malema. His political rhetoric is anchored in mid-20th century Marxist-Leninist ideology.
He speaks the language of the physical world, seizing agricultural land, nationalizing 19th century gold and platinum mines.
Settling century-old colonial grievances through state ownership.
Right. And on the other side, you have Paramendra Kumar Bhagat, a hyper-capitalist techno-optimist writing about trillion-dollar suns, autonomous AI agents, and a spiritual blueprint for infinite digital abundance.
The disdain in the essay makes perfect sense when you view it through this lens.
Exactly. Bhagat isn't just looking at Malema and disagreeing with his tax policy.
He is looking at him and perceiving a man who is technologically, economically, and chronologically obsolete.
To an author convinced that agentic AI is on the verge of reshaping human civilization, a politician dressed in a 1950s worker uniform screaming about taking over a coal mine. It just seems absurdly archaic.
Right. The insult about the manifesto being a Spotify playlist, that's the author utilizing the vocabulary of modern technology to belittle a philosophy he views as rusted and primitive.
And the author's curated news section in the sidebar provides the final piece of the puzzle here.
It really illustrates the exact global temperature of April 2026.
The headlines he chooses to link to paint a portrait of a world vibrating with anxiety and rapid transformation.
Yeah, New York Times headline reads, White House shrugs off shaky economy as war exceeds Trump's timeline.
A piece from Wired highlights, Anthropic plots major London expansion, which signals the aggressive physical land grab of dominant AI companies.
We see this profoundly surreal piece of alternate political history from The Atlantic titled Pope James David Vance I,
which suggests radical shifts in American political and religious power structures.
And The Economic Times reports on RFK Jr. clashes with lawmakers in fiery House showdown over HHS policies in 2027 budget draft.
But most pointedly, a piece from Foreign Affairs magazine is featured. Cyber War's New Frontier, How AI Agents Will Threaten Global Security.
The author operates in a reality where autonomous code is capable of destabilizing global security architectures, right? And international wars are dragging down the global economy.
Exactly. So in a world teetering on the edge of autonomous AI warfare and profound economic instability, Bhagat looks at a South African politician doing a policy mime routine for Twitter likes.
And experiences absolute revulsion.
The author's underlying thesis is that the stakes of the 2026 future are simply too high and the dangers too real to tolerate revolutionary cosplay.
The critique really transcends Julius Malema, doesn't it?
It's a broadside against the entire modern political apparatus.
In an era demanding unprecedented technological and economic adaptation, dedicating the cognitive focus of a nation to a 280-character punk rock performance is framed as a tragic dereliction of duty.
We have journeyed through an incredibly dense, multi-layered piece of modern political warfare today.
We really have. We've examined how an author used the framework of punk rock, the neurochemistry of dopamine addiction, and the brutal efficiency of artificial intelligence to paint a prominent politician as an empty vessel.
The subject was analyzed not as a dangerous ideological radical, but as an algorithmic junkie.
A performer utterly devoid of the complex second album required to actually govern a modern state.
And this entire perspective is inextricably linked to the author's own deep immersion in the spheres of agentic AI, hypercapitalist futurism, and the belief in a technology-driven age of abundance.
The clash we witnessed was as much about the friction between the 20th and 22nd centuries as it was about South African politics.
But a critical reminder before we wrap up. Our exploration of these arguments, the aggressive metaphors and the friction between these two ideologies, is purely analytical.
Right. We are dissecting the architecture of the author's critique, not validating the political reality of the figures involved.
We are just studying the sheet music of the digital symphony.
But analyzing this specific critique leaves us standing on the edge of a massive, unsettling precipice.
This raises an important question, and it forces a terrifying thought about the future of civic engagement.
Yeah.
The essay confidently asserts that the revolution will not be televised. It will simply be posted, subjected to algorithmic ratios, and forgotten by the time the next meme cycles through the feed.
If political outrage has been successfully synthesized into a performance-enhancing drug dispensed in microdoses by unaccountable algorithms.
What happens to the structural integrity of a democracy when the electorate finally develops a tolerance to the drug?
What happens when the voters inevitably get bored of the daily punk rock gig, right? They demand the actual architects to show up and fix the crumbling plumbing of the state, and suddenly realize that behind the amps, the microphones, and the viral lighting, the stage is completely, terrifyingly empty.
That is the silence waiting at the end of the algorithmic show.
And with that profound silence looming, we thank you, the listener, for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time.